I think we're live, I believe. Good evening, everyone. My name is Lou Duran. I'm with HAC. Thank you for joining us this evening as we reunite after nearly a decade from the production of our documentary, No Exceptions. I'd like to introduce Chris Schuler of Christopher Productions. He has created over 100 television programs in the last 20 years that have been broadcast throughout the country and around the world. Chris is a former teacher and focuses on education and social issues, earning 20 Emmy Awards for his work, including No Exceptions. He provided HAC a platform that began with our collaboration back in 2011 to produce No Exceptions, a documentary that aired across New Mexico, and a DVD was put in the hands of every high school in New Mexico. We have continued to utilize the documentary over the years with our presentations, and today we bring to you our reunion of a few of the families and youth that participated. Chris, we thank you for your dedication to our community, and we are grateful for our friendship. We invite you to visit his website, christopherproductions.org.
Is that me, Lou? Do I get to speak now?
You're on.
I'm excited. My gosh. Rick, you shouldn't. What happened to your hair, Rick? My God, it's gone. Everybody, it's been 10 years and everyone is looking younger. It's just incredible, except Erica. She looks older. And it is so exciting to be here. It's hard to believe it's been 10 years. I'm in a new office. That's my big update. You can see the No Exceptions sign up behind me. I carry that proudly. And I don't know if you can see the Emmys sitting back here, but 2 of them are for No Exceptions. And I so remember that night in Phoenix when we all got on the stage, many of us, and accepted that award and talked about the importance of what we were doing. The importance hasn't changed, but I think all of us have been changed, not only by the program, but in the years in between. And that's what tonight is all about. And it's so exciting that everybody could come back and we could see how folks are doing. And up first, I am very excited to introduce, all the way from Colorado, where it's snowy, Erica. Erica, we're going to take a look at a piece of your video, and then we're going to have you speak and tell us what's been going on.
Certainly never set out to be addicted.
I remember this one time I was on my way to a friend's house and I knew that they had some painkillers at their house. And I parked my car and I just started sobbing because I knew that no matter how much I didn't want to use these pills, I knew that when I went there and when I got the chance, I was gonna go find them and I was gonna go take them. And it was just a moment of utter desperation and I was just lost, scared.
It's strange looking back at it. I actually watched parts of it earlier today, and I had forgot kind of what I had said, and I don't know, just strange to think how different you know, things were and how different things are now, and but yeah, I don't know. I don't know what to say.
What are you doing now?
Yeah, so I guess since we filmed, I graduated college. I went to veterinary school, which is something that I had always dreamed of doing, and actually got to do it. And living up here now in Colorado, working as a veterinarian, I graduated about 1.5 years ago. Living with my now fiance. We've been together about 10 years, and just really, I don't know, seeing how life has changed over the years. And you know, it's been one heck of a journey, and I'm really grateful for where I am now. And you know, definitely important to remember where I came from and how different things used to be. and how hopeless I had felt. Yeah, so really grateful for life right now, and yeah.
It's absolutely emotional. And boy, to see you now and to follow you on Facebook, thank you for letting me be your friend. And we're all friends of hers, I know, and we've seen your journey, and we're so proud and excited and thrilled, and can't wait to see where it goes from here, because this is just the start with your whole new life. Boy, it's
Yeah.
good. We're going to come back. We're going to ask more questions along the way. But now I want to check. I think our next video is with the Labas. Is that right? You're
Correct.
nodding. Very good.
Yes.
We're going to take a look at those. And then Joan, thank you for joining us. And I think there's your husband too. Isn't it great with Zoom? Because people can walk around, animals are walking in the background, people are having dinner. It's fabulous. We're going to take a look at this video, and then we're going to come back to the Labas, and you'll tell us what's been happening in the last 10 years with your life. Here's the video.
That he landed up in the hospital. He overdosed the first time. We put him on a program there, and the insurance company paid for 30 days. Additional 15 days cost my wife and I $18,000 for 15 days. So we took money out of our savings because we needed to save him. He did well for a year, and then he lapsed, and my wife found him taking his last breaths. He had overdosed for the second time.
Joan and Andy, so what has transpired the last 10 years for you?
It was a roller coaster. When we thought things couldn't get any worse, they did. We lost him on the streets in Albuquerque, and we lost him twice on the streets in Phoenix. By the grace of God, some wonderful people came into the picture, and he detoxed at Chandler Valley Hope. And then he was admitted in a residential program in Prescott at Viewpoint Dual Diagnosis. And he was there for 3 years.
Oh, God.
3 years, I guess. He finally made it through, and thank the Lord, he's living in Denver. He's been clean for 4 years. He's working for a utility electrical company. He's got his own apartment. He just got a puppy. He's still very involved with NA. And he has told me several times when I've questioned him about something, Mom, go back to your own meetings.
On my end of it, my wife and I are enjoying our life like we should. I have retired 3 years ago. However, we still have a heating, cooling, and plumbing business that I'm helping my other son with. More importantly, we feel that it's a green light. He's got a green light all the way. And we were very terrified when he decided to move to Denver from one big metropolis area to another. However, he had plans, and the plans that he learned, what are the 12 steps that he learned, and he followed those 12 steps. He will fall. Every once in a while he'd fall off that ladder and climb back up though, and he successfully did it. We can just sit here all day and all night, talk about the past, but those days are gone. Now it's green light all the way.
Good for you. Good for you. That is wonderful news. That's really wonderful news. You both look great. You really do. It's-
Tired.
We, he aged us. And what's amazing is he'll come up to you and look you in the eyes and he'll say, Mom, I hope you know how much I love you. And I'm so sorry for what I put you guys through. I'll never be able to repay you. And just having him say that is just,
We're paid back in full, including interest.
well, no, he still calls up and says, hey, can I borrow some money? I didn't work this week because of the snow. So, that never ends. But I remember one of the first meetings I went to, one of the mothers was saying that she hadn't seen her son or her daughter, that they were on the streets and they knew not to come home. And I thought, oh my God, how could you do that? I mean, she was just so, that's the way it is.
Nonchalant.
And I thought I could never do that to my son. I just can't see that. We got there. Andy kicked him out, and it wasn't easy. He did land up in jail a couple of times, and we slept so good those nights he was in jail. He's been through hell and back, and he's got it though. He's got a very good sponsor in Denver, and his sponsor is actually from Albuquerque, which has worked out really strange.
I think what Joan's trying to say is we laid the foundation for his growth, just like you do a structure, a commercial building. And sometimes that construction doesn't go right. You have delays, money issues, and that's where Andrew's life has been. But right now, he's standing on a firm foundation and adding every day.
The other hard part of this was he was in Prescott and had just gotten out of treatment and was living on his own, and he came home for Christmas, and if we could have turned around at the airport, we would have taken him back and sent him home because we knew he was using. And his brother came home on Christmas night and found him buying drugs right in front of our house. And the worst thing with that is, at the time, my husband was working with APD and had a car out there. And it was like, you idiot. You're buying it and knowing what your dad does. And that was the last time our son talked to him. He had it. He was angry. He did not want to have anything to do with him. Up until last February, when he found out that his brother was going to have a baby. That baby has brought them back together.
Wow.
But, so many hurts along the way.
A tough road, but it sounds like you're on the right side of it now. I bet you're sleeping better.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I can tell by the way she snores.
No, I don't know about Andy, but one of the counselors at Viewpoint told me that I had a pretty bad case of PTSD, and it'll come back and out of nowhere. And it happened the other day.
I think that happens to everybody in general.
Just out of nowhere, I had this anxiety attack and I couldn't breathe because I could see Andrew laying on the floor and blue, and it's just, I asked him if it was going to go away, and he said maybe not. And I was out just walking. It was a beautiful day, and just out of nowhere, this vision of him on the floor, and it just I don't know if it gets better. I'm just grateful to have him back.
Well, we sure all are cheering for you. You know that. And there's no doubt we always will be cheering for you and for him. And thank you for spending the time to join us. Revisiting this may be very painful, and boy, we appreciate it. This is going
Thanks
to
for
be,
inviting us and the rest of the folks.
Thank you.
you bet, you bet. And now we want to go to someone whose life really hasn't changed much at all. Oh, wait, her last name. It's different now. Something happened recently. Let's take a look at the piece of video and then we'll fast forward to just a few days ago. This is great.
Well, the isolating himself, the wanting to be gone constantly, never wanting to be at home, never wanting to be with the family. Actually, there was a few times that we found foil, and I didn't know what foil was. You know, I mean, I didn't know what he would possibly be using it for. Spoons went missing in our house. On the door frame, we would see black marks. But, you know, I didn't put two and two together. I didn't know.
Lori, tell us the last 10 years. Give us the version. Exciting things.
Hi. Well, it's, 10 years, it's been tough. Very, very tough. I was just basically for the last 10 years, just in a huge depression. And I think like the Leba said, definitely have been diagnosed with PTSD because of all the things that have happened with Jared and everything that we went through. Yeah, it's, I did find, doing some work with Safe Teen New Mexico and with you, Chris, and Lou and Susan and Hack. And, there have been some really hard moments, but some really good moments, reaching out to the community and being able to share our kids' stories and to hopefully help other kids and keep them off of drugs, seeing the horrific pain that our heroin has caused to our families. There were times that I actually didn't want to live. I really wanted God to take me because I just thought Jared was my whole life. And I just missed him so much. And I just didn't know if I could ever be happy again until about a year ago. I met my husband now, and he's, he has 4 beautiful kids that aren't married yet and haven't had grandkids, or they haven't had children. And and they've accepted me into their family. And it's like, I get a family again now. I get to have people in my life. And so, like I say, the last year I have really come out of it, and I see a light at the end of the tunnel, and I'm happy now. And yes, Chris, I got married last Friday to this wonderful man. Here, say hi, Alan. He's sitting right here, and he's very handsome.
Hello.
This is my husband, Alan.
Hi.
Good to see you.
Nice to meet all you guys. I've heard a lot about you, every one of you.
Thank you.
And Jensen, congratulations.
Yeah.
Good for you. Congratulations to you both. That's just spectacular. Oh,
Thank you.
you just light up. You can tell. You just light up. That's so wonderful.
Thank
And now
you.
he's part of the family, huh?
Oh, big time. I mean, my mom adores him. It's unreal. It's just perfect. I'm just so happy.
Good for you. Good for you. We're thrilled for you too. It's nice to see that. Um, let's go on now to Rick and Margaret, and we're going to take a look at the piece of video. And Margaret, I know you're not feeling well, but we sure appreciate your joining us tonight too. We'll look at the video first, and then let you update the journey.
We literally told him that he could not stay at our house any longer if that was going to be his lifestyle. He needed to leave. And my wife was going to send him with nothing, and I gave him a little bag of clothes and said, "You're on your own, son." I walked away and cried for about 6 hours, and I'm a grown man. And to his credit, about 10 o'clock at night, he texted me. And that's when he openly admitted that he was a user and an addict. And I told him, I said, if you're sincere about this and this is what you want to do, then you can come back, but there are going to be rules and there are going to be boundaries. And so that's how we started our new life. And we agreed to go through detox with him. And we would live through this with him.
You know, Chris, seeing that again is an emotional thing. I know all of you feel the same way. And yet, I can't help but think that 10 years ago, when all of us set out to do something like this through your vision, we honestly felt like we were going to make a difference. And somehow, in some way, we were going to start this battle, so to speak, and wage war on this scourge in our society. And just listening to it, it kind of wells up tears in my eyes to think about it. We still battle today. Margaret and I have taken up the crusade of running the Nar-Anon that Lou and Jennifer started, and at the New Beginnings Nar-Anon every Monday night. We still do it on Zoom every Monday night. And we've continued this battle through this pandemic. And good or bad, for better or for worse, we see our numbers growing, and we see a real need out there for what Nar-Anon has to offer. And, you know, Margaret and I think of Nar-Anon as our salvation. It's what's given us an opportunity to deal with the addiction. Our son is doing well. He lives on his own right now, and you know, my favorite saying is, he's not where he wants to be, but thank God Almighty, he's not where he was. And so every day gets a little better, and he's working hard to continue to improve his life and improve his sobriety and fight his battle. His battle is no longer our battle. Our battle is to make sure that, like the Labas said, that we get to enjoy the rest of our life. And it's been a journey. And, you know, remaining in contact and staying with this particular subject matter, we see the new families coming into Nar-Anon every Monday night completely broken, like we were 10 years ago. Completely downtrodden, full of zero hope, no hope whatsoever. And we have a great group of people that can look at them and say, there is a light at the end of the tunnel, and it's not a freight train. And there is a way out of this, and your journey is starting now. And so, you know, Nar-Anon, for those that don't know him, is not for the addict. It's for us. It's how we cope. It's how we deal. It's how we make our lives better in the midst of this addiction. And I am so thankful every day that Lou and Jennifer years ago went out and started that, because it was our salvation. It's what it's what brought us back some degree of sanity, for lack of any other adjective, so, or verb, adverb. But we're doing, after 10 years, I look at it, I still worry. I worry so much about our society. I wonder if are we making inroads? Are we getting better? Are we just spitting in the wind? I mean, I have to think that we're making headways. If for no other reason, we've brought it to light. If for no other reason, it's now a topic of conversation in some circles, not all circles, but some circles, whereas before it wasn't even a topic of conversation. And so for that, I'm grateful for what we did. And like I said 10 years ago, I really believed that this video was going to be the start of something in a major way, that we could fight a war. And we enlisted our family to fight that war. And we've constantly talked about it in that manner. And we've let people know what we're associated with, and Serenity Mesa and HAC, and we've drawn people in and referred people to it. I can't tell you how grateful I am for this experience, even though the subject matter is so negative and has such a terrible connotation. I was telling Lou shortly before we got started here tonight, I feel like sometimes we get lost in the crack. The government doesn't want to deal with it. The public doesn't want to talk about it. And yet there's us, this group of people here, who are experiencing it. And thank God for each of us, because we know and we can discuss these matters in an open manner with each other and completely understand each other and what we've been through and what we've gone through. I learned the first early years that I didn't do anything but enable the problem, like so many other people. I've learned that a little bit of tough love is a good thing. And, like the Labas said earlier, when your son comes and hugs you and tells you how much he loves you and how much he appreciates the sacrifice that we made to try to give him a better life, and off of that addiction and that drug, you feel good about the journey that you've taken, and you feel good about the things you did and that you tried to do. Chris, I appreciate you, and Lou, and you and Jennifer.
I remember when Cameron went with us on vacation to Idaho for our daughter's wedding, and Jennifer sent his Suboxone with him, and I thought that was the silver bullet. I thought that was the cure. He was going to be okay. And then I remember walking through Hobby Lobby, and Jennifer called me, and she invited me to the Nar-Anon meeting that they had started. And I talked to her, and I answered her questions, and gave her some feedback. And I thought, why do I need to go? I'm not the one with the problem. And we didn't go until we fell apart. And we thought, what else do we have? We need to go. And we went, and I think that's what really saved us. We did in the very beginning say we were not going to let this destroy our relationship, and we haven't. It hasn't gotten in between us, but we've had some rough roads along the way. I've not seen Thomas laying on the floor blue. Rick and Mary Jane did, so I haven't had to live with that. But when he's using, I know. I can tell before anybody else. So that's really heartbreaking. That heroin is such a hard drug to get off of. But like we were talking about with Lou, it seems like heroin is taking a back seat and the psychedelics are what's coming out. And I think that's okay. But it's not our journey anymore. We continue to go to Nar-Anon. We continue to try to help other families, bring them in. And since we've been in Nar-Anon, we had not lost anyone. No one had lost a child the entire over 10 years that we've been in Nar-Anon. And February 3rd, we lost our first one. And that first one just so happened to be Thomas's girlfriend's brother. and his mother had started coming to our Nar-Anon meetings maybe in July or August, while we were in shutdown, and she couldn't come to the actual meetings. She had to come to the Zoom meetings. So she didn't get the full experience of what Nar-Anon can do and the relationships that you build and the support that you have. Even though we do have that through Zoom, it's not the same like everything else. When you're doing it through video, you just don't get the same. So we're really, really grateful for you all that started Nar-Anon and the work that you're doing, Chris. And we're really happy to see the success stories like Erica and the Labas. You know, that gives us hope. And we've seen a lot of other people who have had the success. We just hope that we're able to, I know there's not going to be a silver bullet, but I just hope that there's something that we're able to do to turn these kids into a different direction and away from drugs.
We are so glad you're here tonight. It's so good to see you. Truly is. Jennifer, you really were key and have been key to not only this program, but I gotta say, all the programs in Albuquerque and New Mexico, and you've taken a leadership role nationally, and we are so fortunate to have you here. Not just here tonight, but here in general, and what you have done and the work that you have done is so vital. Let's take a look at the video from 10 years ago, and I'm anxious to catch up.
Back when we were kids, heroin was highly stigmatized. I mean, it was the junkie that lived in the alley. It was something that, you know, you just didn't see in your neck of the woods or your area of town. And so to try and get that perception changed is very difficult, because back when we were kids, you know, nobody did heroin. It was just something that you didn't do. You didn't even know anybody that probably did heroin. And now all of a sudden, you know, your neighbor's kids are doing heroin, or you're seeing these kids on TV that have died from heroin overdoses, and it's just incomprehensible to the average person to think that that this can happen to kids, middle-class kids that live in the Northeast Heights. It's just, it's not normal. So we have a hard time wrapping our brains around how this could be happening. And we still think there's got to be a reason for it. You know, there's got to be a reason why these kids chose that path, and why, you know, there had to have been something wrong. We try and justify it and say, oh, well, their parents didn't pay attention, or you know, their parents were divorced, or their dad worked all the time.
Ooh, wow, I look a lot younger. I'm like, holy cow, 10 years. I've aged a lot in 10 years. I have a lot of gray hair. Oh, thank you, Chris. It's so good to see you. It's been a long time since we've seen each other. So I really appreciate this video, the whole process of doing this No Exceptions video, and then the first one that we did was just an amazing experience. And it's hard to believe that it's been that long. I mean, I've been really like trying to figure, it's like, God, 10 years, that was a long time ago. And I think I'm in such a different place, both personally and emotionally, and just everything about my life is actually completely different than when I filmed that show. When I first, when we filmed it, Cameron had passed away about 6 months before then. So, you know, that first year, I really don't remember a whole lot about that first year. I think I went into autopilot, and I just went into, you know, this mode where it's like, you know, you got to just put one foot in front of the other and get out of bed every morning. And that was my goal, get out of bed, one foot in front of the other. And that's what I did, you know, and that's what I still do. It's still difficult. 10 years later, it's not like it suddenly magically gets any better. I mean, it shifts in ways where, you know, you have happy moments, and you allow yourself to have fun again. And it's, you know, and you don't focus, I think, 100% of your time being sad, which, you know, for definitely the first 3 or 4 years, that just seems to be the way it was. But when the month that we filmed this, I remember I quit my job. So I was vice president at a credit union here in Albuquerque, and I had been in that job for like 15 plus years. was all I knew. Banking was all I knew. And I couldn't do it anymore. It was like I couldn't go back to that normal, what I would have considered back then to be normal. So I quit my job and I got divorced and found the man that I should have been married to my whole life, but I wasn't. So I found the right man. And we got married. His name is David. So we've been married, oh gosh, coming up on, so we got married in 2014. So coming up on 6 years now. Gosh, yeah, that's crazy. 7 years. And I think we opened Serenity Mesa, and that was, you know, I really feel like, and Lou can attest to this because Lou and I have been through this journey hand in hand. You know, I think our kids were just pushing us to do this. It was like, you can't give up. You know, yes, we didn't make it out alive, but there are millions and millions of kids that need this. And we did it. And it wasn't easy. We opened Serenity Mesa with a wing and a prayer. We didn't have any money. We didn't have any support. We didn't have a place. We didn't have anything. And we built it from the ashes, there was nothing. We've been open, we're coming up on 6 years now. We were hoping to have a big 5-year anniversary last May, and then COVID hit and that kind of ruined that. So maybe we can plan something on Zoom, now that Zoom is a big thing now for May when we hit our 6-year anniversary. And we've provided services to over 200 kids between the ages of 14 to 21. So I think that, you know, I have to believe that the kids that have struggled, the kids that are still struggling, the kids that have passed away, the kids that are in recovery, like all these stories and all of this stuff, the purpose is so that, you know, we can help somebody so it doesn't happen to them, whether it's family members like Nar-Anon. I'm so glad, Rick and Margaret, that you guys carried the torch with Nar-Anon, because it is so important. It's so important. The parents are broken. I mean, broken beyond belief. And I think the parents need just as much help as the kids do. It doesn't matter how old you are. I mean, you could be 45 years old and still struggling with addiction, and your parents still are going to need help because it is devastating to the families. And the kids need understanding and love and support. And it's really difficult for the families to be able to give that to them, you know, when they've been, you know, robbed and verbally abused and kicked to the curb so many times. It's difficult to find empathy for your loved one when you're kind of in the thick of it. Nar-Anon really provides that place to just kind of self-combust and then put the pieces back together and figure out how you're going to get through the next day. But I think, you know, I mean, I don't know if I'll be doing Serenity Mesa for the rest of my life. It's a very stressful job. We see a lot of pain on a daily basis, but we also see a lot of success. We see a lot of kids that really do truly want to be better and get better. And whether it's staying sober or whether it's, you know, not using heroin anymore. I mean, they may shift their addiction to other substances, but for them, heroin was their drug of choice. And for them not to use heroin anymore is a success for them. And then they just put one foot in front of the other. And I feel like, you know, this anniversary there's been a lot of stuff that's gone on in the last 10 years. And it's been hard, like Lori said. None of it's really been easy. But I'm a different person, and I feel like I've grown a lot, and I learn something new every single day. I mean, I will never completely understand why, you know, my life took this path or anything. I won't fully understand it, but I'm grateful because I got to meet all of you guys, and we got to participate in some really cool things that we wouldn't have gotten to do otherwise. And I appreciate it. And thank you, Lou, for organizing this reunion.
You're welcome.
And speaking of Lou, your cohort in crime who's been with you on all these steps, and I've got to tell you, and we'll talk about it in just a minute after we see the video and after Lou talks, but Lou has been integral in a lot of the ongoing work that I've been honored to participate in, creating videos for the city and for the NMAA and a number of other things. We'll talk about that in just a little bit, but let's take a look at a video of Lou 10 years ago, for goodness sake.
Yeah, yikes.
Touch him. I feel I'm a hostage.
You think when you get your child help the first time that you're done. Oh, they're done, he's over with, not knowing at the time that it's a lifelong battle. You send them off to college and you think it's over. So then when the first relapse happens, you know, reality really slaps you in the face. When the second relapse happens, you know, again, you're naive to think a 30-day inpatient has cured your child. You don't think. You don't even have time to think. You just jump into what's my next plan. And there was always the next plan. And you know, I used to joke, plan A, plan B, plan C. I had a plan D, you know, when the night Michael died, because I knew he was still struggling.
I get the phone call on a Wednesday.
I spent the weekend, you know, prepping for this and getting us clips, and it was really hard. I saw the original clips from 2011 that Jen mentioned, where we did, you know, the youth in a room and all the parents in a room and listened to everybody's portions. And I'm not gonna lie, I cried a little bit. And then I would hear Erica's voice and my heart would smile because I knew that we were going to share her story of hope. And I think it's so easy for us to get caught up in the bad news and the deaths and the kids we can't help, that we don't put enough spotlight on the hope. You know, Erica's now the face of hope. Erica talks about being in recovery. She's not embarrassed. She says, look where I've gotten, you know, and I survived. And I wish, you know, we do that as parents too, because when we talk about losing our child or that we have a child that's in recovery, our voices give voices to those who don't. You know, we give them permission to talk. The stigma is just still so prevalent in this, you know, in the world of addiction. And we can scream at the top of the mountain and say it over and over again, and it's okay to talk about it. It's okay, it's okay, it's okay. And you still, I mean, we meet parents all the time at Serenity that we're still in shock that this won't happen to my kid, and it did, and they didn't know, you know, what to do. But I'm thankful. You know, Jen mentioned, you know, for me, I've always told her, meeting her was my, she provided my safe space to grieve, and joining the nonprofit and then helping, you know, from almost day one to grow our program from Narnon to passing that torch to planning Serenity. I always love finding our emails from 2011 and I'll send them to her. And it was, Serenity was a dream. You know, we just wanted to provide a safe space for youth to recover. And we wanted to provide what wasn't there for our kids. And so Serenity Mesa, we are fluid. Every day, sometimes we talk about what policy can we change to make it better for the kids or for the parents, or, you know, and it's forever changing. And, you know, going back to that, the opportunity of being able to grieve and help was my therapy. You know, instead of going to a therapist once a week or 3 times a week, you know, my therapy was doing what we've done in 10 years. About 5 years ago, Jen and I attended a grief weekend, a workshop or something up north. And I was so motivated that weekend. And I told Jen, we're going to start a group for moms. And you know, we need to start something else to support moms who've lost it. I'm sorry about the dads, but I focused on the moms. And I think it was still 2 years later that I finally picked up my phone. I said, Jen, what Saturday are you available for lunch? And we started Moms, and it's moms offering mom support. And we meet, pre-COVID, we were meeting once a month. And there has just been something about sitting at the table with other moms who have experienced the same loss, and you don't have to explain anything to them. You can look at each other, and that's what HAC was. And you just are with a group of people that just get it. You know, we've experienced something that we don't want anyone else to experience, and that has been our goal, is, you know, education and awareness. And I kind of ran with that piece. You know, when Jen and I first started all of our planning, I was drawn to that part of it. And I remember at one of our very first presentations, a mom was talking about losing her daughter. And to me, what I felt from her story was she had lost her daughter a month ago because the pain was just so raw. And at the end of her presentation, the woman said, and it's been 9 years since I lost my daughter. And I was shocked. And I leaned over to Jen and I said, I am not going to be that mother in 9 years. And bam, all of a sudden I'm that mom and I'm at 10 years and I'm still going strong and my story is still relevant. Cameron's story is still relevant. Jared's story is still relevant. Michael's story is still relevant. I helped, I thought I'd be done, at this point, 10 years later, and really I'm just rejuvenated. I met a family in 2011 and we always tell people, or the kids the youth that are trying to seek recovery, you're either going to end up dead in jail or, I've lost the train, you're going to end up dead or in jail. And I was contacted by this family that I met in 2011 and our stories are parallel with our boys. And he's sitting in a federal jail right now facing federal charges. And that really, really ignited my advocacy goals again. And I sat in Jen's office a couple weeks ago and I said, look, 10 years later, our goal for 10 years was to, we had lots of goals and yet the kids are still there. They're 10 years later, he's sitting and he's going to go to federal prison. So we can do better. We have to do better. And 2 days ago, these things happen to me and it usually ignites me. A mom that I've known from the beginning as well. Our boys, we talk about how easy it was to get heroin. They were texting and the drug dealer would bring it to your driveway. We didn't joke, but we talked about how drugs were like pizza deliveries. And the new thing now, and I talked to this mom, is the drug dealers are targeting the kids on Snapchat. And her son, who has seen all of our presentations, was at a local park, was Snapchat drug dealer, and here we go again. And it's 10 years later, and now it's Snapchat that's the culprit, and psychotropics, and we've done a great job talking about heroin, but it's moved on to fentanyl. That's another thing. Meth. Jen and I just did a presentation about meth last week, and meth has surpassed heroin overdose and deaths. So I can go on and on and on, but my point being is we've done a lot of work in 10 years and there's still so much to be done. And it's amazing and awesome to see the kids at Serenity. And it's also very emotionally exhausting too. I credit Jen and David. They're there, every day, Monday through Friday, and they're available 24/7. And I have taken a little bit of turn because I'm a granny now, I'm grandma, and I get to watch my granddaughter every day. And so I have stepped away a little bit with my foot in the door, and I just marvel at the energy that Jen and David have. So I appreciate it. We need thousands of Jen and Davids, and it's there is a lot of work to be done yet.
Oh, we so appreciate you. We do. I mean, the city does, the state does. I'm in this interesting, odd position where we were allowed to enter each other's lives, and I learned some things and learned some amazing things, and I look now and I look at what's happened, and I do think, Rick, things have changed. I really do believe that. I believe they've changed in a number of ways. And one of the things, and I'm curious as to any of your responses, but particularly you, Rick, when you saw what happened with Purdue Pharma, and they are paying a lot of money and they are going down. I don't know if you saw the 60 Minutes piece about all that, but I think the government has shifted some in their going after some of this and understanding the role that the pharmacies played, the role that all these other organizations played. When Jaime Quinones had that incredible book, I know you're doing a piece on that now, right, Lou? But looking at how this came together, what is your thought on that? Did you feel good about what happened there in terms of them getting them? Or obviously there's more work to do, but I'm just curious.
Are you addressing me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was ecstatic, honestly, about what was happening to Big Pharma in general. Um, you know, when you're in the throes of all of this, my first instinct is to say that's a drop in the bucket, but obviously it's a very sizable sizable sum of settlement. And then the second concern that I had was making sure that these monies reach the places that they need to go. And I know all of us expressed the same concern. But that does, as you mentioned, that does speak to the fact that there is movement and we have moved the needle. I couldn't tell you how far, how much, but we have moved the needle. Even in our little small corner of the world, Jennifer is nationally known for what she has done. And to me, she's a national treasure because of what she's done. And the group of us all have moved the needle a little bit. I still think it remains to be seen as to how far. What are we going to get out of that Big Pharma settlement? What are we going to get out of the business environment in general, where maybe they curb the development of some of these terrible things? Maybe they restrict the release of it in a more transparent way. I don't know. I mean, there's so much going on, Chris. It's not just Big Pharma. It's coming from international sites as well. We're being overrun from all directions. But yes, we have moved the needle. And yes, I do believe things have changed. But as somebody mentioned a minute ago, we can, should, and will do better. We all have experienced this. And here's my concern. We carry the torch. We carry the torch. See, we're the voice for the people who are on the other side of the river who don't want to talk about this. We carry the education. We carry the stories. We keep the people who just couldn't travel the path any longer. We keep them alive by being able to tell people our story, your story. I use Lou and Jennifer every Monday night. I bet you I mention their name once every Monday night. I guarantee you I do. They get so tired of hearing me say that, okay? But it's the truth. They're the torchbearers. And if we silence our voices, if we say my day is done, okay, then it'll die with us. We have got to teach new people coming up, the Ericas of the world. I mean, what a story. What an incredible story, right? We've got to continue. We've got to continue to tell the message. And if we don't continue to tell the message, it will die with us. And that does scare me. That does concern me, because I see them coming in every Monday night. And I'm not talking, I'm ashamed to say, not ashamed to say, but embarrassed to say, I'm 60 years old, okay? I see 35-year-old people coming in with their kids, 40-year-old people coming in with their kids, grandparents coming in about their grandkids. It's not diminishing. Now, whether or not it's just because now it's available, they've got places to go, they got people they can talk to, or is it getting worse? Those are all debatable issues, I'm sure. But from my little corner of the world, looking at what we look at every Monday night, the numbers are up. And people are hurting today just as bad as all of us were hurting 10 years ago. And again, I think we crusade the message.
I want you to think about this for a second, then I want to hear what people have to think about it in terms of this last year. Obviously has been unlike anything else and horrific in so many ways, and has really taken its toll mental health wise and everything else. And I've got to believe it's taken its toll from a drug perspective as well. Before we address that, Jennifer, could you tell us for a second, for those who don't know, and maybe Lou, you can chime in here too. You've been to DC several times. What do you see happening?
Well, I mean, before COVID, there was a lot of movement in Washington, just trying to get some of the legislation that we were working on recently and are still working on, even with COVID going on, is trying to basically push the health insurance companies to cover opiate alternatives. So there are alternatives out there for people that have to have surgery, for people that have to be in pain, or back pain, whatever it is, that are non-addictive, and insurance doesn't cover those. And so people have to pay out of pocket. Medicaid doesn't cover it. So if you're on Medicaid, you can't afford to pay for these drugs out of pocket. So we've been doing a lot of push for that. And then there's still, the Fed Up movement is another movement that that Lou and I have been a part of, and we've gone out to DC and spoke at their rallies, and they push for a lot of different things. I mean, they push for the stigma, they push for, they're the ones that really pushed with the big pharma stuff, and trying to shut down, just the mass production of opiates. And I think with the opiates, like, I'm really seeing a difference in prescribing habits with doctors. Like, I really do think that doctors are finally getting the message. But I also know that they're mass producing pills in Mexico now. And so, not only are we having to deal with heroin coming across the border, but, now the pills are coming across the border too. So it's like, as soon as you kind of get one area taken care of, then something else pops up, and then you've got a whole nother issue that you have to deal with. But I do think there's several bills in Washington. It takes forever for anything to get moved through the Senate and the House in DC, just because they don't have a 30 or 60-day session like we do in New Mexico. It just lasts and just keeps going. But I'm hopeful that we'll be able to get back up there in person, maybe towards the end of this year, and start pushing for some of that legislation to get through.
Lou, anything to add on that front?
No, I mean, Jen and David did the legislation part, and I joined a nonprofit out there that does what we do locally as far as the education and awareness piece. And so the work continues. I think a lot of people are under the misconception of nobody's doing anything. And really, there is a lot of people in the background doing a lot of things. And across the country, there are other places like HAC and Serenity Mesa that have grown over the last 10 years. So I think it just, the perception is it feels like nothing's happening, but it really is. And laws have changed. And unfortunately, I think the numbers were in the last 2 years, 185 deaths a day to overdoses. And then it went up to 192. And then a couple of weeks ago, it went up. And I believe it's in the last, previous to 6 months, the 12-month period before that, the numbers are 222 a day. So when Rick said about it seems like it's getting worse, in reality it is because of COVID as well, because of the isolation. The worst thing you can do for an addict or someone trying to get into recovery is isolate them. And so, I feel like that's what part of the numbers going up, the mental health as well. Suicides are really high. They were already going up before COVID. So amongst youth here in New Mexico and everywhere, I think New Mexico may have been the number one as far as numbers. So you put all that together and we're back to the perfect storm again. I think we made strides over 10 years, and COVID has kind of kicked us on our butt, and we're just getting up. And I think we're going to have to work even harder to move forward.
Chris, can I add, Thomas recently went to the dentist, and he had his wisdom teeth removed. And, we're adamant about making sure that every dental and doctor appointment they're fully aware of the fact that he is an addict and so forth. And they wrote him a script for oxycodone. Yeah, so again, we are making strides. It's 2 steps forward, 1 step back kind of a situation. And also, I'd like to add and thank Lou, because she, on occasion, keeps Margaret and I involved in the schools. We have an opportunity to speak to at-risk kids. And, I think that I really believe that is our saving grace, is to educate our youth, because as they age and grow through this, it filters through, obviously. But when we're speaking to those youth, and we're looking out in that audience because they're at risk, their parents are there or their guardians are there, whoever it happens to be. And, some of these kids are looking at you like, this is this is a total waste of time for my, you're wasting my time. But on an occasion, you get maybe one or two that are looking at you, and you can tell that you've struck a chord with those individuals. And I just pray as time moves forward, we're able to strike a chord with more individuals.
No, I was going to mention that. So we've heard sort of the macro look at the federal things and the bigger things that government's doing, but it's these small things, these one-on-one things that you're talking about with the Safe Teen program. And thank you all again. We've been using this video over the last 10 years in schools all over the state. And many of you have been involved in that. Lori, I'd like you to, if you could just, you've done a couple of these, each one of you have done different pieces. But Lori, what was your experience and how were you responded to after that, after you gave your talk with the Safe Teen program?
Yeah, it was very rewarding for me. Like Rick said, to stand up there and to tell your story. And, you look out into the audience and you see, some of the kids are looking around and not really paying attention. And then you get these other kids that are looking at you straight in the eye, and you know that they get it. And that hopefully something that you said caused them to actually get it. And that happened actually when we did the, what was it? The thing that we had at the Rio Rancho High School with all the
Mark Wahlberg.
Yeah, the Mark Wahlberg Foundation. My thing that I did on that day was I was helping at the school buses. I was going outside and it was windy and cold, and I'm like, what am I doing? I'm out here on the school buses. I don't know what good I'm doing out here. But then I would get on the bus and I would talk to the kids for a minute before they disembarked the bus. And actually there were a couple of girls out there that got off the bus, and I was talking to them, and they had no idea who I was other than this lady that was out freezing in the middle of the winter, getting them off the bus. And I remember going up, and when we went up on the stage, and those two girls were sitting right out in the front, and they looked at me holding the picture of Jared, knowing that Jared had passed away, and they looked at each other, and then they just both started sobbing. And I think it made a difference. And then other times as well, Chris, when we did the Safe Teen, the kids lined up at the end of the presentation, and there were just so many times that they just were sobbing and gave me a hug, and it just helped so much to think that maybe hopefully something that I said caused them to not do drugs. So yeah, it's been very rewarding.
And Erica, you snuck up to Colorado, so I couldn't use you anymore. But how did you feel about I think some of the most effective things, and just so you know, and some of you may or may not know this, and Joan, I think you do know this, but the Safe Teen program, we create these youth champions. So we meet with the student council people or the student senate people or the kids who are going to run the program at the school, and we show them these videos, those things we saw and more over the period of a month. They get to see all these pieces. And I have got to tell you, you may not see it in the big assemblies, but these kids are riveted to what you're saying and how you're saying it. And they see their friends, they see themselves, and they really, I think, become champions, so that when they're at the party or they recognize something with their friends or whatever, they do something. And I have got to tell you, after these assemblies, for weeks after it, the counselors from that school, whatever school it may be, will send me a note and say, by the way, I had 3 kids come in and disclose to me this and this and this after that assembly. So it's been a huge deal. But Erica, you did several of these. And actually, I saw a picture today. I should have shared it with you.
Oh, yeah.
Did you see
I shared it.
I did, yeah, she shared it. Yeah.
Oh, good. Where we were there and you were there. I don't remember which school it was, but
La Cueva.
La Cueva, oh, my home school.
that's right.
Yeah, I loved those. I really loved you know, getting to share my story, and I totally would have, you know, individuals come up to me afterwards, and there's even a few that I'm Facebook friends still with, and have, like, you know, kept in touch. And yeah, and it was, you could see, you know, the kids goofing off, and, you know, not everybody was taking it seriously. And but there definitely were, you know, the faces that you'd connect with, and the people that would come up afterwards and say, hey, like, I'm worried about my friend, or you know, I'm dealing with this, or you know, just thanks for your story or your time. And for me, I mean, I think what helped me the most was just hearing other people's stories, and connecting with people in that way. And you know, with the 12-step program, I felt like that was, you know, the biggest thing was connecting with people. You know, when you feel so isolated and you feel alone, and you're the only one going through this, and then to have somebody stand up and say your story, you know, is extremely impactful. And you know, I do miss those assemblies. I thought they were really cool. And I don't know, it was a really great experience. And I, you know, would love to continue to be a part of it, even from far away. I know I've talked to Lou a couple of times about trying to get something, you know, over Zoom or whatever. But yeah, I enjoyed them.
It's the one-on-one thing. I think we could talk macro, but it's the individuals talking to each other, and relating to each other, and hearing a story and connecting personally, which is why I think this pandemic has been so damned awful, because it's forced us away from each other. I mean, we're connected on Zoom, but my goodness, I mean, the individual connections are so difficult, especially for young people now. And I don't know how we get by that. Are you at Serenity Mesa? Do you do any? Is there any outreach that you do, or is there? I mean, they're there in person.
Right. Yeah, we do. I mean, we've been in the office, so I mean, we haven't had to work. I mean, there's been points of time where we've had as many people work from home as possible, but for the most part, we've all been at work. And it's been difficult. I mean, you know, they've been attending 12-step meetings through Zoom, and they attended one last week, and there was, I think, 5,000 people or something like that on the Zoom call. So, you know, it's really hard for them to speak or have any kind of voice in those kind of meetings, because, you know, there's way too many people. And so, you know, they haven't gone to face-to-face meetings in a while. Lou's organized a couple of meetings that we've sponsored that have been, like, there's a women's group meeting that Ava McGuire, who is also part of a lot of the speaking engagements and things like that through her recovery, she facilitates those on Friday evenings for young women, or for women. And then we have another person that Lou works with, I know I'm going to say it wrong, Lou. No Halo. No Halo. I always want to say no hollow. No Halo. And he's been doing groups for us too through Zoom. But I mean, it's really difficult because, you know, these kids are Zoomed out, and I can't imagine what it's like, you know, for somebody who's used to just going to face-to-face 12-step meetings and that fellowship. I know they're starting to do some in person again, but they're limiting the number of people that can go. And so they're very small groups, but that face-to-face fellowship is just so needed. And our young people struggle.
Andrew didn't like them, the
Yeah.
Zoom. He just said it's just not the same. And then they started meeting at a park. They're 6 feet apart.
That's
and
a
then,
good
of
idea.
course, you know, living in Denver, that didn't last too long.
Yeah.
But there's a group of his friends that are NA that they meet for lunch or for dinner. He's going skiing. He's gone skiing snowboarding 3 different times with some of the folks that he's with NA, but he said he just couldn't do the Zoom. It just couldn't do it for him.
Yeah, I think it's way too impersonal.
Yeah. Kind of off the subject, but I had a knee replacement 3 years ago, and they of course gave me OxyContin, and I was like, I told Andy, don't get it. I don't want it. Don't pick it up. But my sister is a nurse, and she was telling me that New Mexico Orthopedic is no longer prescribing opioids for any surgery.
Wow.
Which I thought was awesome.
Huge.
Yeah, and they're sending them home with Tylenol and Advil, but there's no opioid prescriptions coming out of their office.
Oh, that's great. That's good news.
Yeah, that is, because my boys had their wisdom teeth, and hindsight is 2020, but the oral surgeon gave both of them a prescription for OxyContin for 40 tablets. And actually that was when we really started seeing, because Eric never used his, Andrew used most of his, and then Eric's disappeared. But at the time you're not thinking that way.
Right.
And then one other thing, I've had kids at school come up and tell me, hey, miss, I saw you on that video. You never said anything to us about your son. I'm so sorry, and it made me cry. But it's reaching a lot of kids. I was at Atrisco Heritage, and the number of kids that came up to me and the number of faculty members was incredible. Now I'm at Freedom High School, and it's the same thing. A lot of kids will come and talk to me about it. And I don't know, Lou, how many times have I texted you, hey, I got a situation. What should I do? Where should I? So thank God, I've got Lou that I can pass it on.
I'd like to add something real quick. Again, thank you for everybody support, love. I try to get city councilors involved in when we would arrest somebody that was an addict, instead of sending them to jail, let's send them to treatment. I couldn't even get city councilors. I did the research. It would cost $43 a day back then for recovery, $68 to lock them up. I mean, do the math. I still couldn't get the politicians to agree with me, because back then I advised them that we have a pandemic out there, not the flu, not swine flu, but addictions. Every time I run into these camps, young girls shooting up pregnant, and they would rather get arrested than to go in the right path. But I just found it so difficult that politicians are a big problem.
Absolutely.
The idea of, and I did see a major thing on 60 Minutes about this as well. I hope, Andy, I hope that's changing. And I feel like there is at least now the start of conversations about how addiction is a disease and is not a jailable thing. And there are countries around the world who are recognizing it as such and doing things to affect that. I believe Washington, is it Washington State or Oregon? Jennifer, you may know, or Lou, that just passed the law. And it sounds counterintuitive to pass a law to decriminalize drug use, but to open up healthcare facilities and facilities of detox and all these things to really address these things as health diseases as opposed to jailable.
The country of Denmark, tiny little countries,
there you go.
They've had nothing but success with it.
Right.
I don't know. It's just overwhelming.
Well, the other part of it too is most insurance companies will only pay for 30 days inpatient. So, the government needs to step in. If you look at their websites, the say no to their drug thing, it tells them it'll tell you nothing short of 90 days is going to solve this. So they're telling you you need to get 90 days or more, but hey, insurance companies, you're okay. 30 days, we're not going to hold you accountable for that. And we noticed that, we knew that with Andrew. You know, he spent 30 days in Lubbock and it didn't do any good. And you know, he was 3 years at Viewpoint, and it took 3 years.
Yeah.
So, you know, we've got to get the government to step in and force these insurance companies to realize that parents need help. Kids need help. Some insurance won't even cover it. It's sad.
Well, yeah, Rick.
I was gonna tell you, you know, we're celebrating the 10th anniversary of this phenomenal video, and I realized how old I was when my granddaughter, who's graduating, came home and said, "Papa, everybody knows who you are, and because they know I'm related, they saw your video and everybody's asking me about it." So it has passed on to different generations. I just want to make that note.
And you know, it is being used outside of New Mexico. It's being used. I get calls from teachers, health educators. They find it somehow, which is really interesting to me. And they're using it in classrooms all over the country. I can't believe it's been 10 years. It just seems so. I mean, a decade. We were at Cliffs doing this thing, and I may have told you this, but if not, I thought it was a real microcosm of the entire production. We were trying to, with all these things, you never have enough funds to do what you want to do with them. And I remember the day I went to Cliffs. I'd set up a meeting with the young man who was running Cliffs then. He was the son of Uncle Cliff, whoever that was. And
Cliff Hammond.
Yeah. And I talked to him about doing this show there, and he said, "Well, what can I do to help?" And I said, "Well, we need the whole thing shut down for a day, and I need all your people in to run the rides, and I can't pay you anything." And he said, "Okay, when do you want to do it?" And I said, "Well, why in the world would you do that for me?" And he said, "I lost my best friend in high school." And it just hit me. It was like, oh my God, this has no boundaries. I mean, you had been telling me that all along in that first video we did with all the parents and then all the young people. And boy, talk about an awakening, at least for me personally. And I think your courage in doing that, when I see this and we use pieces, to do that on camera, to know that it's going to be out there forever. I'm just stunned and honored at your bravery and your willingness to do this. And I have to tell you, you know this, but the difference it has made, and many times we won't even know. But I think hundreds of thousands of people have seen this thing, and they have been affected. They have absolutely been affected. Before we wrap up, and Lou's going to wrap us up, is there anything anyone else would like to say before we close out here? Erica, I know you want to say something. I can just see, I see your wheels turning.
I don't know. I guess just this whole time I've been thinking about kind of how my role has changed over the years. I mean, I'm not standing in front of, assemblies full of kids and as much of a face, I feel like, of youth addiction as I used to be. But like, thinking about kind of on the small scale, I am fairly open with the people around me, at least you know, not drinking, and sometimes people can make the connections, but you know, I have been able to be a resource for other people, and you know, being open through veterinary school, even you know, with that stigma, and having other people reach out to me who are also struggling, and to be able to you know, be there for other people. And you know, I think even if we're not in front of you know, huge assemblies, I think we can still make differences in people's lives. You know, how big, how small it is, it's don't really know until it happens. And you know, really grateful to have been a part of this production, and you know, great to see everybody and to keep in touch, and just really grateful for how things are these days. Yeah.
Good for you. Lori?
Well, same as Erica, you know, it's not always standing in front of an audience at the high school. It's just day-to-day things that you might meet somebody and share your story with, and you know, you never know who you're going to run into that you'll be able to help. And then other people knowing the struggle that I've gone through, then they refer people to me, and then I can refer them to Lou and Jennifer. And so now I'm gonna be retiring at the end of this year from a long career of teaching. And so I'm hoping to be able to be used more, and to once again go into the high schools and go to Serenity Mesa and do whatever I need to do now, because I'll have plenty of time now. So looking forward to that.
Good for you.
We
Although
are
you're
too.
traveling with the new husband, so
Yeah, my husband.
we'll be very cognizant of that before we ask you.
Lori,
Joe?
I'm retiring this year too. I'm done. I've had it. It's over. And I told Lou the same thing. Once I retire, I really want to get back and start doing the volunteer stuff again. But we're
Same
gonna
with
have to go out and celebrate this retirement, because
Yeah.
I don't know about
That's
you,
right.
this year's been a tough one.
Pardon me?
This year has been a tough one.
Yeah, I'm done. I'm ready to enjoy my golden years.
Yeah.
My husband.
Good, good for you. Jennifer, what would you like to add?
You know, nothing that hasn't already been said. It's great to see everybody, and I wish we could have done this in person, and maybe we can do a in-person reunion after COVID, or we can all get together and show the video and invite the public and do kind of a awareness campaign again, because I think it's definitely necessary. I mean, I was, you know, with all the, it's unfortunate, because I thought by this point in time, you know, we'd have conquered it and it would be, you know, done with, but there's still so many people out there that are struggling. So I think it's really important, like everybody said, to just keep sharing our voices and sharing our stories and telling people it's okay to talk about it, and not to feel embarrassed or ashamed, and not to live in silence. And I think that's the message we just got to keep pushing out there, because there's a lot of people struggling right now, and there's a lot of people that need help, and having that kind voice that's non-judgmental to talk to makes all the difference in the world. So thank you again, Chris, for all your work, and thank you, Lou, for putting this on tonight.
Yes, thank you, everybody. It's
Rick?
good to see everybody.
Rick, Margaret? Last words?
No, I just want to thank all of you who paved the way for us. I would like to have Erica speak to our Narnon group sometime, so if we can find a way to exchange information, because I think it's important for these parents to see that somebody has a success like you, that there's hope. Thank you.
It's a great idea. And we're gonna let Lou wrap it up. And Lou was the instigator of this entire reunion. And I'm so thankful you did this, Lou. Yeah, absolutely. Applause and hearts and everything else for bringing us all back together. And I can't believe it's been 10 years. And Jennifer, I think the idea of doing a follow-up, I've got to believe there's 1 or 2 TV stations who would be interested in that, and to do a follow-up with some of you and see how the progression and things can get better, and things do get better. And there are ways that you can get through this, and it's all about human connections. And just from my standpoint, I am just so honored to have had the opportunity to work with you all. And we'll keep up the good work. Lou?
Thank you, Chris. You are our favorite MC, and thank you for tonight. You're always amazing. I am thankful for the journey. I embraced it early on, and I'm thankful for the friendships. I'm thankful for, there's the heart and soul does heal. Loss of our children sucks. Sometimes that's all you can say when people say, "How are you?" And all you can say sometimes is, "It still sucks." And life does go on, and the pain is still there, but it's a different kind of pain. And I am so very thankful for HAC and for Serenity Mesa and for meeting Jen on, all those years ago, because she truly is my soul sister. And I'm thankful. I'm thankful for all the friendships. I'm thankful to help. I'm thankful, it doesn't take us a minute to share those resources. And at Serenity, when you call and we can't help you, our staff is going to give you 3 or 4 numbers to call, and then we say, and if that doesn't work, call us back. And so our community has really come together. We collaborate with so many great programs out there. I just want people to know that there is hope, and there is a lot of people fighting for our youth and for our community. And Jen and David and I and all of you guys are just, a little bit, because we're out there and we found our voices. And for that, I'm thankful. And that's one thing I tell any presentation I do, I say, please find your voice. So with that said, thank you, everybody. If you'll just...
And if anybody needs any of these videos, or any of the videos on the website about vaping or marijuana or any of those other things, don't purchase them. Just get to me and we'll get you the links, because they're all digitized now. And Lou knows how to get a hold of me. Lou's going to be the center point of connection for us, I think. But
happy to.
Feel free to reach out at any point for any of these things.
Great. We appreciate you. Thank you, everybody, for coming. I know it is hard sometimes, and I'm proud that we all still have our voices. We're an amazing bunch of people, and I'm thankful to have you guys all as friends, because I do feel you're all friends and family. So I'd like to close this tonight, and I want to honor one of our youth that we lost. Antoinette Rodriguez passed away in 2019. She was part of this journey of the documentary, and our heart and our prayers go out to her mom, Allison, and thank you all. Good night.